We're really trying to push the idea that disability is an identity that should be talked about and fought for at the same time when we're fighting for the rights of, say, women or of other marginalized groups. That disability is not something that should just be pushed off to the side, that is a defect, that it's actually an identity group and a culture. My name is Anna Landre, and I'm a disability justice activist and policymaker. In the world, there are at least 1 billion people with disabilities that we know of. The number is probably even higher, and that number is about 15% of the population. In the US, the CDC reports actually 1 in 4 Americans having some sort of condition that could be considered a disability. It was really early on when I realized that disability rights, disability justice was a systemic issue because those issues affected me. I was trying to just attend classes and do things like any normal student. And my home, the state of New Jersey, was trying to strip me of my care and assistance services. So the person who would quite literally help me get out of bed in the morning, help me get dressed and do daily tasks, they were trying to cut those services and say that I didn't need them, which is something that happens really often. And I was really lucky to be able to spread the issue publicly. It started with just local media. I was cold emailing reporters and saying, this is happening to me and I think it's so wrong. And the story got popular, and disabled people from not only all over the state or the country, but all over the world reached out to me to say that it was happening to them too. And this is just one small microcosm of this issue, which exists across the world in so many contexts, not just in disabled people getting access to care and healthcare services, but also everything from sidewalk quality so wheelchair users can get around, or accessible information so that people with Down syndrome can understand what's going on in their society and whether they need to access resources and how they can do so. We are able to pass a few laws in the state legislature that have made it easier, particularly for students with disabilities, to get access to the services that they need at college and afterwards in the workplace. There have also, I think, been some cultural changes that in making my situation public, the state government is going to be reluctant to do this thing again, to try and strip people of their services. And unfortunately, it's a symptom of the privatization of healthcare, not just in my home state, but in America more broadly. I've been really lucky to be an activist with ADAPT, which is a grassroots nonviolent protest and civil disobedience group in the US. ADAPT started in the 1980s in Denver, Colorado, with disabled people chaining themselves to buses because the buses were not accessible. And that kind of spread across the US. And nowadays we do similar things. We have sit-ins in Congress members' offices when they're not willing to either create new laws or fund old ones that have to do with the quality of life of Americans with disabilities. Another area where I work is disability and disaster response or crisis response. I've been working to support a Ukrainian disability-led organization in evacuating and providing aid to disabled Ukrainians in the war. Because just as it started, it was really clear that disabled people had particular needs, like not being able to access a bomb shelter because it was down a flight of stairs, and that those needs weren't being solved for or provided for by mainstream humanitarian organizations. And so we stepped in, this organization called Fight for Right, based in Ukraine, and an organization of mine called the Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies in the US. To our knowledge, is the first ever wartime evacuation and aid mechanism for disabled people. It's never been done before. And we've been able to help well over 10,000 people. So the fact that we were able to put together this coalition, that the outpouring of support just came, was really fantastic, and is something I'm still thinking about. A lot of disabled people love our lives, love our identity, love the experience of being a person with a disability. And that's not to say it isn't really difficult sometimes, because it is. It's difficult not just because our bodies and minds might be different, but it's largely difficult because the world responds poorly to those differences, because the world can't get with the program on building, say, ramps instead of stairs, or talking to the person in the room who looks different. And when we are included, when those types of access are provided, our lives are just as fulfilling and fantastic as anyone else. And we even often take joy in our different experiences, in the funny situations that it leads to. And I think that tends to surprise people. But I wish it was something that people were more aware of. I think a change maker is someone who's looking to push for justice in a sense that's beyond just themselves. Pushing for the betterment of your community. It doesn't have to be really big, it doesn't have to be passing a law. It can be, oh, I noticed that down the street there's no ramp to get off the sidewalk. And I know that my neighbor down the street uses a walker and is gonna need that ramp. And if you write a letter to the city and they fix it, that's something really fantastic that you just did.